Hello and welcome to today's webinar entitled Introduction to Technical Paper Writing, Value, Concepts, and Process Steps. I'm Matt Kelly and I'm an STSM within IBM Systems, Electronic Card and Interconnect Engineering. Today, we'll be talking about how to write a technical paper. The agenda for the presentation is outlined below. First, we'll start with the intent, followed by the value of technical paper writing, publication options and where to publish, technical workgroup and content generation, steps in writing a good technical paper, including the process flow and a step-by-step process element flow, followed by a summary and a checklist that you can use to help you in writing your paper. First, let's start with the value, concepts, and process steps. This education module is designed to highlight the value of technical writing. It's focused on how to write a paper, including topic selection, process flow, and writing and submitting of your paper. Examples, references, and helpful resources have been included to help illustrate these points throughout the presentation. The intent of this is to ensure that all attendees understand the value of technical paper writing, that they're aware of the various publication options available to them, to gain additional insight on what working group models are available to generate the content, and are provided a step-by-step process to actually draft, edit, and submit a technical paper. The value of technical writing. Paper writing and publication to the industry provide significant value in three primary ways. First, it provides a source of technical marketing to clients and your supply chain partners. Published subject matter showcases your leadership and the innovation or technical breadth in solving a complex problem relevant to the industry. Second, publishing helps to influence your supply chain. So as solutions that are identified with the problems that you face and solutions to those are overcome, you can influence others around you. This adoption helps to fuel even larger industry demand for your solution, and it ultimately lowers costs for materials, equipment, or your manufacturing value add costs. And lastly, it provides an easy way to communicate various technical topics during your day-to-day work. Publications in the area are easily distributed. Once they are published, no restrictions are in place, allowing you to disseminate the information freely. This information can serve as an excellent background for new programs or development efforts, or people that may not be familiar with the art. Publication options. Typically, you can publish in journals or text. These are the first sources of publication. Refereed journals or texts are typically published by a professional society with a limited range of appropriate subject matter, for example, the Journal of SMTA. For this format, novel content is required. New discoveries or insights or understanding is the focus and cannot be previously published. Scientific literature references are very important. The trail of building upon previous knowledge or know-how is important in demonstrating the novelty of the topic presented in the journal. The technical review process for these formats is very strict. An editor first assigns the manuscript to a key reader base that is reviewed by a group of experts in the area. That review board is then determining whether or not corrections are needed. And if going through all the entire process, the paper is accepted by the committee. It should be noted that strict formatting rules are expected for this category of publication. Next, you can choose to publish within an industry trade journal. These are commercial publications, and they're typically free to professional subscribers. Examples can include Global SMTA Packaging, Circuits Assembly Magazine, or Interconnect 007. Original content is not required for these formats and are often reproduced from industry, conference material, or other literature. Technical editor assistance is limited, and much of the content relies solely from the published author group. Publication in trade journals is perhaps less prestigious than refereed technical journals, but it's often a very, very good way to get started if you're new to publishing in the industry. Next, and this is often the first step for many authors, is publishing it at industry conferences or proceedings. Technical content is selected by technical committees via abstract submissions and technical program track requirements. Submission requires technical paper and a presentation. Original content is required. It's important to note that if you're going down this road, that travel approval is required to attend the conference and should be attained before abstract submission. Now let's switch our attention to working group options. There's several different ways in which you can generate the content of your paper. You can generate options through internal working groups, supply chain partner collaboration, or consortium. Let's start with internal work groups. If working on an unannounced hardware technology, you should be using extreme caution with external publications. Always check with management teams before submitting content from internal working groups. You may be working on something proprietary to your company. Next, supply chain partner collaboration. This can include material, equipment, or other electronic assembly manufacturers. Make sure when you're working in this group that you have proper confidentiality disclosure agreements in place as to protect any intellectual property you may possess. Ensure at all times that supplier names and trademarks are protected during the publication, and always verify that suppliers are willing to co-author. They may, in some cases, want to remain anonymous. Lastly, you can work with consortium. Examples include INEMI, HDPUG, standard bodies including IPC JEDEC, or in academia, IWC or SRC. Understand that membership participation rules and obligations within this larger consortium exist, so consult with those groups before agreeing to publish something. Also be aware that with many companies involved, project completion timelines in this model are often much slower using this model. Now that we've taken a look at where we can publish and how we can start to generate content for a published topic, let's now switch gears and take a look at how we can actually start from the very beginning and guide us through how to write a technical paper. On this slide, you can see our 12-step process that we are recommending that you can follow to generate a content solution here from the beginning of your abstract all the way to your technically published paper at a conference. The following slides will take you through each step in detail. Step 1, identify the technical problem. Focus on finding solutions that link directly to your products or your operating models. Valuable problem-solving examples include new materials, processes, test protocol development, or enablement of new technologies. Improved reliability, quality, performance of your hardware, or improved yields or throughput during manufacturing. Once you have a problem that you know you'd like to solve and is worth publishing on, then go ahead and select your working group model as we discussed in the earlier slide. Understand what model will work best for you to generate timely and meaningful results. And as we discussed earlier, ensure that all intellectual property is protected. Next, define the strategy and your funding and execution model for the project. Good technical papers are built on sound data sets and through sound program strategies. Don't forget about funding. Many programs can require little funding, but some can be excessive. Also be aware that if you're working with multiple partners, that in-kind contribution or data sharing should be discussed. Always obtain management approval prior to the engagement of working with an external collaborative work group, and ensure that your project timelines line up well with abstract and paper submission deadlines. Step 4, identify the target publication forum and your submission requirements. We spoke about where you can publish your work. Take a good look on where you want this to be shown, how you would like to have it distributed, and what your target audience are. 5, secure management travel before approvals. Before you're submitting your abstract, make sure that you are able to travel to the conference. Many conferences will not accept papers if the lead author is unable to attend. 6, submit your abstract and await acceptance notification. Although abstract lengths differ, most are often in the 250 word or less range. This is your chance to have the review board determine whether or not they should accept your paper. Be clear and succinct, stating the problem statement, any background or legacy work, and any new insights gained by your work. You will need to include the formal paper title, your author listing, and the company information within the abstract. Good abstracts are often short and very clear. Waiting periods for this can be on the scale of 1 to 2 months, so be patient, and usually no news is good news. The working groups are just determining what abstracts will be accepted for your conference. Step 7, actually talking now about writing the technical paper. General tips include working with your first draft. Make sure that you don't try to do it all at once, that you have iterative edits, and that you are building this as you go. Always be sure to use third-person verb past tense when writing. Do not use the terms I or we in your prose. Always protect trade names and supplier names at all times. You want this to be a neutral technology description of your work. At SMTA and most other industry associations, non-commercialization is important. Technical papers and presentations proceed to sales pitches are not accepted by technical review boards. From a format perspective, these do vary by publication option, but they can and are rejected due to improper formatting. So pay attention to how your final manuscript looks. In general, technical papers are on the order of 6 to 8 pages in length. Abstracts with 2 to 5 keywords and an introduction, discussion on your methodology used, results, conclusion, acknowledgement, and references often form the body of many good papers. From a timing perspective, be aware that all key dates throughout the submission process. You do not want to be rushed for time if you're generating data or awaiting feedback from a partner. Clearly understand the abstract submission date, the paper submission date, and when the presentation is due at the conference, if applicable. Now that your paper is written, make sure that you have management approval before releasing that content. Depending on the company that you work for, final version must always be reviewed by management or any other departments, including your own line department management, any brand management, corporate environmental affairs as needed, or IP law, depending on if any IP content needs to be protected. Step 9, submit your paper to the journal, trade magazine, or conference review board. Typically, your submissions are written in Microsoft Word or equivalent format and uploaded to either a website or emailed to the technical coordinator. Be sure to include any signed copyright forms or biography forms requested by the review group. Awards are often granted for outstanding work selected by attendees and technical committees. This is important as you can understand whether or not the work that you've generated may be eligible for such an award. Step 10. The paper has now been accepted and you are now on your way to creating a presentation. This is usually done only at the industry conference stage. This is often not required for industry submissions such as journals or industry trade magazines. Once your paper has been submitted, many conferences require a 30-minute or less presentation. Note that the presentation slot in its entirety is 30 minutes, and you should be arranging your presentation time somewhere in the order of 20 to 25 minutes, allowing for questions. To do this, a recommended slide count should be no more than 25 slides. Presentations, again, must be avoiding any commercialism or any sales pitches, same as the technical paper. Be aware that some conferences use standardized PowerPoint templates, and you should be using that format when required. If everything goes well and everything is agreed to by the review committee, then you can actually go ahead and begin your conference travel plans. Make sure that before you are presenting for the first time, if you're not well versed in this, make sure that you continue practicing your presentation, focusing on your key messages, accommodations, ground transport flights, and don't forget to register. You've made it to the conference and now you're ready to present. You're actually going to present the technical content and influence the industry as planned. Once your paper has been presented at the conference, it is important to note that this material is now considered public knowledge and can be distributed as needed for future reference. So that concludes the steps on how to write a technical paper, and would like to conclude here with what we've taken you through within this training module. In summary, the concepts that have been reviewed include the value of technical paper writing. It offers technical marketing, and it also influences your supply chain. We talked about the publication channels and options that are available for you to begin publishing, and that includes journals, text, trade journals, and industry conference proceedings. There's also options on your workgroup models and your content generation. There are pros and cons to each of them. Just make sure the one that you select fits with what you're trying to do. Always be aware of the content that you're generating and the publication requirement timelines. And sometimes these models take much longer than the time allowed to publish the paper. And finally, we talked about the technical writing process and submission requirements. Always adhere to the proper formatting and timing, obtain necessary reviews and approvals, and create your presentations with clear take-home messages. Finally, this is an example checklist that you can use to help make sure you stay on track. This is just an example, but I do recommend that you write something down to this effect so that you are not surprised on pending dates. This includes getting your idea started, your abstract submission, when the paper is due, when the presentation is due, and when you finally give the presentation the day of the conference. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you found this module informative. And if there are any additional questions you may have, you can always contact me at mattk@ca.ibm.com. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed today's webinar.